Hey there, I'm down here in the corner. I'm Kate, and I've been a professional photographer for 25 years. And I am here today to talk to you about what you should get for your first professional camera. Why should you listen to me? I guess I'm not a real camera nerd, but I've been a photographer for 25 years, and I went to school to be a photographer before that. So today I'm going to give you some advice about upgrading your camera gear. And let me start by saying that I think phone cameras are awesome and you can take wonderful photos with them if you're on a tight budget, and you should stick to that, especially if you haven't learned anything about light or posing. Because if you start with that and you use your phone camera, you will have a lot more confidence when you get into using a big girl DSLR camera. So I just wanted to tell you to start that you should use whatever gear you have and that you can afford. And you don't need to feel bad if you can't afford a new camera. But today I'm going to give you some advice about buying your first camera. And I'm not sure if all professional photographers or camera nerds are going to agree with everything that I'm about to say. But to be honest, I don't pay a lot of attention to what others say and what the latest and greatest is. I just know what works for me. And I photograph a lot of babies and families and headshots, and I make six figures. So I think I might have a little bit to say that might be worthwhile. So we'll talk about that. And then at the end of this video, I'll show you what's in my bag in case that's helpful to you. I don't want to assume that you're all on a tight budget, but I'll show you what I have, and maybe you want to start out with the best of the best. So here we go. We are going to talk about full frame cameras and why I think you should get a full frame camera. I know this is like a really busy page, and I did that on purpose because I just really want you to know that I am well aware that there are so many options for you guys, and it's really confusing. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I think you should do, and you can take it or leave it. You can YouTube what I have to say. You can YouTube what others have to say, and figure it out on your own. But here we go. What I suggest is that you get a full frame camera. And what that means is the sensor on the camera is full frame. And it's the size of a 35mm camera. So what you can see here, if you're a diagram type person, is that there are different sizes of sensors. And the sensor is the little square that's inside your camera that takes all the information in and makes the photo. It takes all the light in and all the information that's coming through the lens, and it records it onto a little sensor. And the bigger the sensor, the more information it can hold. So your files can be bigger. Not that I think that's the biggest factor. I'll tell you a little bit about why I think you need to get a full frame sensor. The biggest deal for me is that a full frame sensor gives your lens the fullest potential that it can give you. And you might be starting out with kind of the cheaper lenses, but if you're also starting out with a crop sensor, you're just not going to get the kind of detail and beauty that you would get with a full frame. You might as well stick to your phone, in my opinion, if you can't get a full frame sensor. So a lot of entry-level cameras are going to have a crop sensor. And then the lens that you get might be a kit lens that isn't super great, and it's not going to let a lot of information through because the aperture isn't going to open nice and wide to get all that information. So you're going to be dealing with just kind of mediocre photos. And the whole reason why you're upgrading is that you want something better than what your phone can do. So I suggest getting a used full frame camera. You don't need to start out with something new. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways I would go about getting a full frame camera. I'm going to continue my session here at B&H Photo. This is a really awesome photo site. They've been in business for years and years. They have free shipping. They guarantee their used gear. And if you call them, they're very helpful. So what I would do if I were buying a new camera today is I would go to make sure that I'm in the used department. Way over here on the right, click on used. We click on used, we click on photography. we go to DSLR cameras. And the first thing you're going to want to do when you get into used DSLR cameras is you're going to go down to sensor size. And I like the full frame. I'm going to go back to why I think you should get full frame again too. I'm clicking on full frame. Now I want to go back and show you this photo that was up in the very beginning. And I want to show you why I believe that a full frame is going to be your best option. What I did here is I took a picture and I wanted you to see how cute this baby's face was. So I used my skills and I put my dials at the right place where only this is super in focus. And her head is a bit out of focus. The background's a bit out of focus. Even his eye isn't completely in focus. This is the part that I wanted in focus. And this is what I was able to do because I had a full frame sensor and I had a lens that could open up nice and wide and give me this sort of feeling of it out of focus in the background, out of focus in the foreground. That's why I love my full frame. So let's go back here. We're going to, for now, we're just going to look at the bodies. So let's see, we're going to look at price low to high because honestly, this company isn't going to sell us anything that's really terrible anyway. This is a Mark II. It's just, it's a few years old. And I know that this may be shocking for some people as far as price goes, but for a nice digital camera, that's about what you would pay on a site like this where it's guaranteed. We can get these cheaper, and I'll show you a way to do that too. But these are full frame cameras. They don't have a huge selection of really cheap ones today. Sometimes they have them for cheaper. This one is the cheapest one. It's $369. It's a Canon. I don't care what you buy as far as the brand goes. I know more about Canons because that's what I use, but some people really like Nikon. Some people really like Sony. Get what you can, and it's not a big deal. So there's for cameras. Get a full frame camera, and I'll show you in a sec how to get them cheaper than this even. But let's also go and look at lenses. So we go to photography, used, and I guess it's under photography, and then we're going to go to lenses right here. When you see a red line like that, it means it's going to be an expensive and really nice camera for Canon. But we're going to go to SLR lenses. Even this one here, 15 millimeter 1.8. So 1.8 represents the f-stop, the largest setting in the f-stop. It's a small number, but it's the largest setting is what you're going to see right here. So 1.8 is pretty good. That is sort of a lower end, and that's still not bad. It's not a bad lens is what I'm saying. There's lenses like this one here is what I use, and it covers mini focal lengths 24 to 70, and it opens really wide, which is kind of hard to find. You want something that opens big, and for some people you want a zoom lens. If you can afford it, you can do that. But I do suggest you start with something like a 15 millimeter lens. These are all 1.8. I really like the 15 millimeter 1.4, which let's show you. I'm going to show you a Canon. I know that there's equivalent for Nikon and Sony, but let's find the 15 millimeter 1.4. This lens here I used for years, and it was great. It still is great. I have it kicking around somewhere, but this one here opens to 1.4, which is nice and big. You can get that nice fall off. You can get something in focus in the middle and then everything else out of focus for that really beautiful pro look. So you want to be able to look at the mount and match it to your camera. This is called an EF mount, and it goes on those cameras that I showed you a few minutes ago, like the Mark II. Just be aware that you're going to need to match up your lens with your camera if you're buying them separately. And definitely call them if you're unsure. They're really helpful. But there's different ways of mounting lenses. And there's like one called a Sigma, and it comes with different mounts on it so that you can put it on a Nikon or on a Canon. Just make sure it matches. So there's my advice for getting a camera and a lens. These ones that are cheaper and cover a lot of different focal lengths are usually not awesome. 3.5 is not a really wide aperture. You want it wider, which this one, the 50, which means it's only at one focal length, but I highly recommend just getting a 50 if that is what your budget is. If you see that this is 188 and you're like, oh, this one's 164 and goes many different focal lengths, don't buy it. Get the prime. If you can't afford one that's nice, like, well, that one's really expensive, like this 24 to 70, then just stick to a 50 to start. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to write this all down for you, and it's going to be underneath in the notes. Okay, so let's head over to Facebook Marketplace. I typed in digital camera right here, and you'll see that there's a lot of point and shoot cameras. That's not what we're talking about today. I'm hoping you can get something with an interchangeable lens. So let's look at some of these. I'm not going to go through tons of them. I'm looking for something that might be at least close to what you might want. We're going to click on this one, which is a Nikon D3200, and I don't know anything about this camera. And the first thing I'm going to do is go over here to Nikon 3200, and I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it in over here, and I'm going to say Nikon 3200 size sensor, and it's going to tell me, yes, okay, size sensor. And it's going to tell me that it is 15 by 23, which with my little diagram here is showing me that it's this APS, otherwise known as a cropped sensor. So that's not really what I would recommend you get. I'm not going to go through all of the marketplace stuff and find you one right now, but hopefully you can find one. You're going to look for a full frame sensor. You're also going to look for some red flags like this, which is a camera that is left without any cover on its front. A lot of dust can get in there, and to get these cleaned, it's $100 at the minimum. So I would try not to get one that looks completely abused like this. Basically, this is like the biggest red flag I've seen. You don't want your camera laying open like this. They come with these little body covers, even if you don't have a lens, that it should be on here. So that's a red flag. The other thing you're going to want to look for is a lens that opens as wide as, you want it to say 1 point something. And a lot of these cameras have a kit lens on them, like this one here. This is an 18 to 55 lens. And I don't know if they have a really good picture about how wide it goes. My guess is that it goes to like f4. There's a few other red flags in this one too, like a bunch of hair laying on here. Hair and dust, and camera's not really the best mix. Another thing, you want to make sure that it has a battery and that they can charge it before you get there so that you can make sure the camera works. If you know what the camera is, which you should take this, for example, if you were buying this one, you copy that and you put that into your Google and you say, what size memory card? And you bring a memory card with you so that you can try out the camera and make sure that it records a picture on the back. You want to just make sure that there's no missing pixels. And it says they use regular SD cards. And if you don't have one, you can just go to the drugstore and pick one up, or Best Buy, something like that. So before you buy a used one, make sure that you can take a picture on it. So let's go back to my little baby here with the nice focused little lips. And I was using my 24 to 70 lens, which I'll pull up here. It's a little bit fancy and not everybody can afford it, but I think I saw it right here. I used this camera here, and I was just looking at the stats on that particular picture, and I didn't even have it all the way open. It goes to 2.8, which is pretty wide. So as I said before, the smaller numbers mean wider aperture. and I was shooting it at 3.5, which isn't even as wide as it goes. See, it goes to 2.8. F22 is tiny, and this is the number here that you're really looking for portraiture. You want this number to look small, even though the hole is big. So that's the camera lens that I was using. And I told you that I would show you what's in my bag. So I'll do that. I have the 24-70, and then I guess I could just do it and use. I have the Sigma Art 50. And this one comes with different mounts, some for Canon, some for Nikon. But I have this one, and I love it, and it wasn't even super expensive. That's my Prime 50. And then another one that I have, really, those are the two lenses that I use the most. The 24-70, and then this Sigma Art 50. And then I have the Canon 35. I can't remember what the, it's a prime lens. So we're going to go to SLR, and it's a 35 millimeter 1.4. I have this one too. This one is really pretty for family photos when you're outside. It goes nice and wide. Some people use this for their baby photos. I usually like to use my 50, or I use the 24-70 and I shoot it around 40. I like to have my arm out to be able to catch the baby if they kind of tip over. So I try to go a little bit wider than what my 50 does sometimes. But I still want you to start with a 50 prime lens if you're thinking about getting. I'll show you what I use as far as a camera goes as well. We're going to go back to, I don't know why I can't back out while you guys are watching, but okay, DSLR cameras. I have one DSLR, and then I have also a mirrorless camera, and I'll tell you why I upgraded in a sec. So this is the DSLR that I have, the Mark IV. For years and years I've had this. Well, not years and years, maybe 3 years. I didn't buy it used because I use my camera so much that I sort of wear them out. So I start with them new. But you can get one used for $12.99. It makes really big files that you can blow up really big. But honestly, I can't really describe why this would be any better than getting that first one that I showed you, the Mark II. The other camera that I just bought is not a DSLR, considered a DSLR. It works in a lot of the same ways, but I use a mirrorless R6. This is it right here. There's an even better one called an R5. I think you get that one if you're really into video. So you could get that one if you're into making lots of really high-tech videos and get really into the nitty-gritty of how that all works. But this one here is the one I got, and I got it. Let's see if they show the feature that I love. I don't think they have a picture of it. I'm going to show it to you in the corner. I photograph a lot of babies from above. You've probably seen that on my Instagram. It has this that comes out, and then I can hold it over a baby like this, obviously with the strap on so I don't drop it on the baby. But here, I'll turn it on so you can kind of see that you can look at what is happening without a lens cap on. You can see my mouse? You can see what's going on. You can put it out in front of you, and you can photograph like this while you're looking at what's below. I was doing a lot of blind shooting where I'd hold my camera up and just blindly click, 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 not knowing what was happening down here. Because I don't like shooting super wide. I could go way out to 24 and probably look down and take a picture of a baby, but it looks better if you shoot somewhere around 50. So I hold this over my head, bring it way up so I can get everything in focus, everything that I want in the frame, and take a picture by looking at this little screen that comes out of the back. That's the only reason why I switched. Otherwise, I would have stayed with my regular Mark IV. I think that there's some lower end cameras that have a back that pops out. I haven't done a lot of research, and I'm a Canon user just because I have all the lenses. Oh yeah, and that's something, if you switch to mirrorless, you can just use an adapter for a regular DSLR camera, but the mount on these is different. So you can get the lenses with the specific mount for this camera, but you can also get an adapter if you already have some Canon lenses for a regular DSLR. I ended up getting the adapter because I only want to switch one thing at a time, just for affordability. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope I have helped you figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to buy a new or used camera, and what your priorities are. I want you to feel excited when you pick up your camera. And that's one of the really big benefits of getting a camera instead of using your phone, is that it's sort of a transfer of your brain. You pick up your camera and you're going to make beautiful photos. It's not just a snapshot. And the feeling of holding this really powerful tool in your hand can really elevate your spirit about becoming the best photographer that you can. So good luck in your journey. I'm here to help. Please ask questions. I'm happy to help you find the first camera that you're going to buy.